Something I run into time and time again as an astrologer who regularly consults with other people about their families and about their children is the concerned parent who is worried about a scary looking placement in their child's chart. Now, this is something I really wanted to address early on in the series because as we begin to talk about family dynamics, I know many of you are going to start pulling charts for your family members and you're going to start looking at your precious little children. And you're going to see some things in their charts that you want to shield them from and you want to protect them from. And that is all well and good. And that is all perfectly normal. I think that as parents, especially parents of newborn babies, we feel like obviously the strong instinctual desire to protect them from everything big, bad, and scary in that world. We want to protect them from it. And so it's only natural to see like a horrific looking placement in their chart and clutch your pearls, basically, and really be nervous about it. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal as a parent to perceive a threat and want to do something about it or want to understand it. So what I'm going to say, my best advice here is twofold. The first one is to be curious. How is that placement going to show up? Because a lot of times, and I know I mentioned this in the moon video, that's the other reason I want to talk about this now, is that some of you might say, oh my God, that's my placement that you said is a really challenging moon placement. Having a challenging placement in your chart is normal. We all have them. There are no perfect charts in the whole universe. There are some that are really close to perfect, but there's going to be a Mars and Saturn and a Pluto and a Uranus and a Neptune somewhere. And also, challenging placements give us grit. Challenging placements give us knowledge, wisdom, know-how. And yeah, it puts us in the kiln and it puts us into the forge and we become strong. We become soldiers of something of our charts, you know? And so it's not a bad thing and we can't escape it. We can't run away from it. We all have challenges in our charts. And I'll tell you, I consult with all different kinds of charts and some people have really challenging looking charts, but they're living normal and good lives, many of them. A lot of times the challenging placement is our internal experience of something. Maybe we just never know how these things are going to turn out. So going back to my number one piece of advice for conceptualizing and looking at challenging placements in our children's charts is to be curious. How is that going to show up? I know I shared my son's chart with you all. He has a Moon Saturn conjunction in his chart. Could be something challenging. Absolutely. I have not shared with you my daughter's chart. Hers has some eyebrows raising with it. And we'll get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I refuse to look at her chart and spend my days worrying about how I'm going to fuck her up, what thing that's bad and out of control is going to happen to her that I have no control over at this point in my life. The only thing I can do is be the best parent that I can be. And that's all you can do. And, you know, the other thing is that a lot of times I think that our children incarnate into our lives. I'm like getting emotional about this because they're here to have a human experience. And one of my friends said to me when I was being human and worrying about her chart, he said to me, do not take the human experience away from your child. You know, they incarnated on this planet to live like the full spectrum of humanity, which we know is rough sometimes. Do not take that from her. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, she's a human. I'm here to foster that experience for her in the best way. And yeah, all we can do is be the best that we can be. And sometimes, I love this perspective too. Sometimes, we could think about that child incarnating into human form. We are changed by that. We are changed by our children's entry into our lives. And when we're born, we change our parents' lives forever. And so, what kind of parent that child is asking you to be might show up through their moon placement. So, you might look at your child's moon placement and say, oh my God, like, does that describe me? And you might see like some hard aspects with the moon. Am I going to be a bad parent? Like, am I going to not be there for them? And like, all these things go through your head, right? But it might not be you, first of all. It might be something that's completely out of your control. It might be their experience. They might be having a different experience than you're having in your relationship. And the other thing is that they might be asking you to become something for them. And it's true, parenthood really changes you. And I can feel it even becoming a parent a second time, how it changes. And so, yeah, like their moon placement might not, I guess my point is try not to take it as personally, because it might not be all you. It might be other caregivers too, as well. It might be like their collective experience of something. But be curious. We don't want to settle into this space of fear or trying to control something or trying to pad our child from the world. Astrology is gonna astrology whether we astrology or not. Like it's gonna do its thing. There's nothing we can really do. So yeah, I guess being curious about how that placement is going to show up is just the best way to be really heart-centered and present with what hasn't manifested yet. Because I'll tell you, I've been studying astrology I've been really studying astrology since 2009, but I've been into astrology since I was 9 years old. So really long time. And I continue to notice new ways that my chart comes to life. It even continues to surprise me in all my years studying astrology, basically. So let those placements in your child's chart, in anyone's chart, surprise you as they come to life, even as astrologers, knowing the transit on the horizon, knowing what's expected of a transit, it will still surprise you. So astrology helps us be prepared, but it doesn't tell us explicitly every detail. And also your chart, like your Venus placement, your moon placement, it's going to continue to express itself in different ways as you move through life. So what looks like it might be a scary placement might not. It might not. And there are tons of people with moon Pluto placements, and some of them will describe really tragic stories, but not everyone's will. And that's something that I've seen a lot in a consultation space, is that there isn't a one recipe fits all for every placement. It's very much informed by the person's experience and, the time that they grew up in, the place that they grew up in. It's a symbol, and that symbol is going to infer a theme, an energy, but only that person can tell you how it actually comes to life. You can make a really good guess as an astrologer, but ultimately you don't know until you talk to that person. And ultimately you won't know the full capacity of how that placement can blossom until the end of a person's life, and arguably even after. I mean, we look at post-mortem charts of celebrities, and their charts are still getting activated and still coming to life in really cool ways. So surrender into the space of saying, I release the need to have absolute control over what happens to my child. Of course, it's our it's our job to protect them, to prepare them, but we can't control what happens to them ultimately. So yeah, I would be curious about how that chart comes to life is my best advice there. My other piece of advice is how we respond to that child's chart. And I don't think that it's the healthiest actually to put too much emphasis on a child's chart. There's a lot of astrologers that won't even look at children's charts. They won't even look at their own. I know astrologers who waited a very long time to look at their children's chart. Not me. I was like fresh off the operating table looking up my children's charts because I'm that person. But I looked at it because I wanted to see it, and then I kind of put it out of mind because I don't want to look at them and see a chart. I want to be curious again about who they are, who they want to show me that they are. And it's my job to respond to that and to support that, in my opinion. So in my advice of responding, look at the things that you could think of as positive or cool or worth really, really nourishing and embracing in a child's chart. For example, what does their moon need? Again, look, we spent a lot of time about the moon in a previous episode. What does that moon crave? Is it an intellectual moon? Is it a moon that craves closeness? Is it a moon that needs to keep busy? Is it a moon that needs to be encouraged? Is it a moon that needs to be left alone when they're upset? What does that moon need? I think learning about our child's moon can help us give them what they need. And it could be really useful. It could be a really useful ally for us as parents. Now, does your child, in a similar vein, does your child have a lot of air in their chart? Do they need to be socialized? Do they need to be going to different play groups and taking different classes? Or do they have a lot of fire in their chart? Do they need to go run around and be wild somewhere? There's a little one in my family that has that. And I'm like, sign this kid up for boxing or get him somewhere where he can run around, like get that angst out. And also, yeah, is there placements in your child's, is there a lot of water? Do they need to get into in spaces where they could really let their imagination flourish? Or what about earth? Do they need to be helpers in the kitchen? I think a lot of earth placements in children, these are kids who want to be a part of the tasks. They want to help out. They want to learn how to do things. So these are ways that you could become friendly with your child's chart instead of being in this place of worry or fear. And again, I want to validate those feelings. I've certainly felt those things with my own children, and I've certainly encountered many other people that do. And it's so normal because we love them. We want to look out for them. We want to protect them from everything. But sadly, we're just not going to be able to. We were all babies once. Every adult walking around was a precious, innocent baby. And then life happens and we become more textured in terms of who we are and our opinions and our values. And that chart is going to come to life in time. Your child with that challenging aspect is not necessarily embodying that challenging aspect as a baby. That could be something that comes to life after they're out of the household. You never know. So don't put that kind of pressure on yourself, is what I'm saying. Be curious and lean into the positive things that you can foster and nourish in this immediate now. So that's a little bit about my advice for parents looking at your children's charts. And we will continue to talk about this in future installments. But for right now, that was your third episode of the Family Astrologer. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Bye.